Hi, guys, and welcome to Niallpoint with myself, Neil, and this is Tomas.
Hello.
Today is something a little bit different. It's the start of a brand new series that essentially we're probably just doing for ourselves, but who knows? You guys might enjoy it.
Yeah, basically.
This is just another way for us to chat shit. Um, and honestly, that just is all we put. That's what we put on the internet. That's our content. So, yeah. Um,
Exactly.
So this is the first episode of Niallpoint Reality. We are normally a Eurovision-focused channel, but we've decided that since the best show on TV is back, that we would try and talk about this a little bit and come up with our
Are
own
you
favourites.
claiming that it's better than Eurovision?
Let's not get into that. But we are going to be reacting to the Flemish show Demo. You will know, if you don't speak Dutch, you will know it as the Mole. There's versions all over the world. There's one on Netflix for America that
Yeah.
you can watch as well. But we are
Oh,
looking
I've
at
seen that. Yeah.
is it Channel 4? The Dutch
It's
channel? TV4?
Play 4, yeah,
Play 4.
whatever
There we
it's
go.
called. Yeah. We used to have like 3 or 4 main broadcasters, and now we have 65. I don't know. I don't know what they seem to be splitting them up.
But it is a Flemish TV show. It's the original as well, isn't it? This is where all
It
the
is the original. It started sometime in the 90s, had 3 seasons in Flanders, and then for some reason they stopped, even though it was really popular. But it was sold, like the format was sold to several countries. I think in the Netherlands they're on season 20,
million.
20 and 20 million or something. Like there's a lot of seasons in the Netherlands. I think there was a British version at some point. There's some Scandinavian
Yeah.
versions, American, which I only just saw. There is an American version on Netflix. So I might have to check that out. But I've seen a trailer and it already looks so much more dramatic than the Flemish
It's
version.
I've not finished it,
So
but it is quite dramatic. Maybe that can
are
be
you
our
watching
second
it? Are you
series.
watching it?
I've seen bits of it
Okay.
when I was missing Demo. Um,
Oh, okay.
Before we get fully into this show is essentially, if you're British, this show for me is essentially a mix between The Traitors and Race Across the World. But
Yeah.
Thomas,
Yeah, that's a good.
tell us more about the show.
Yeah. So there's one main difference between Traitors and The Mole, which I'm going to explain in a second. So basically, it's a reality game show. I'm going to try and explain this really short. There's 10 people. In the Flemish version, it's 10 unknown people who go on a holiday, you could say. And during this holiday, they have to complete all kinds of tasks and challenges that earn them money for the group. Um, what they also have to do is try and find out which one of the 10 contestants is the mole, which is someone who secretly sabotages these or as many tasks as they possibly can. So basically, the objective of the mole is to keep the prize money as low as possible. And this person has to do that secretly. So the other contestants don't know which one of them is the mole, nor do you know that as the viewer. And that's the main difference with the traders. In the traders, you've got your
Yes.
allies and you've got your traders, but as a viewer, you know who the traders are. In the mole, you don't. So you have to try and figure out who it is along with the contestants. So that's super fun. Um, Basically, at the end of every episode, the 10 contestants have to fill in a quiz with questions about the mole. But seeing as they can only guess who the mole is, that means they also have to guess for these answers. Now, these could be any kind of questions. It could be one of the questions could be what do you think the mole was wearing this morning at breakfast? A red shirt or a blue shirt or a green shirt or whatever.
I
If
mean, I think
you
one of the questions in this first episode was, is it a man or a woman? Like, it was as
Is it a
simple as
man or a
that.
woman? Exactly. So, but if you don't know who the mole is, if you think that, I don't know, Sheila is the mole, but she's not, then you're going to answer, oh, it's a woman, but it might be a man. You just don't know. You're basically guessing at the start of the show for the contestants and as well as for the viewers. It's basically just a guessing game. As the show progresses and the contestants start doing sort of like questionable things, you start getting a better idea of who the mole could be. But they edit it in such a way that it's always still, it's basically impossible to know 100% for sure. So anyway, so they fill in these quizzes every episode, and the person that gets the lowest score on the quiz goes home until only 3 remain. You have the 2 finalists and the mole, which is when they, figure out who the mole is, and then the winner is the person who has the highest score on the last quiz, and that person goes home with the money. So that's basically it.
Nice and simple. And that's the only time we're going to explain it, I think. So there we go. I think that was very well put. So Aflevering one, here we go. It's actually N, isn't it? Oh, well, who knows?
Yeah,
anyway.
Aflevering in, yeah.
At least I'm learning some Dutch. It's fine. This is what 300 days of Duolingo gets you. If you don't speak Dutch like me, there is ways to watch it with English subtitles. So if you want to get involved, just send me a message on Blue Sky and I'll help you out. But let's get into this. We open with Giles, the host, who is very handsome, meeting with the mole. Yep. Obviously, we don't see the mole and their voice is disguised, but he sort of introduces the mole coffer, the mole suitcase. Yes. Yeah. Which the mole can use to sabotage tasks, because they get to know what the tasks are in advance as well to figure out how they're going to do it. But this allows them some extra sort of props and different things that they can use. We will get onto that later on because it may have came in handy. But the first challenge is essentially the 10 are split between 3 different containers and they have 3 different challenges. So one container, they have to find the links between themselves. So that's Hilda, Jan, and Nimrod. Yeah. And they have to dance to reveal letters.
Maybe we should have just quickly started with telling the people who the contestants are for those.
It'll take too long. It'll take too long. You can look up who the contestants are. You can look up. Yeah, but it took us 5 minutes to describe the show. Come on. So, if I remember correctly, the links were that Hilda and Nimrod have 2 dogs. 2 dogs and a chicken, or a dog and 2 chickens?
2 chickens and a dog, I think.
2 chickens and a dog.
That was the link.
Jan and Nimrod went to the same, from what I understood, the same university, same college?
I think it was something like that. Or was it football, something to do with football? I don't know.
Yeah.
I forgot.
And then the one that I remember, because it's so tenuous, was that the link between Hilda and Jan was that they have a love of their house.
No, that's not it. See, I was wondering if you were going to get that. So there's these 2 big telenovelas in Flanders. Oh. One is called Familie, which means family, and the other one is called Thuis, which means home. Oh. Yeah. So you saw the Dutch word for home, but it's a TV show, so they're both fan of that TV show. That was their link. So
right.
Yeah. Okay, so that
makes more sense.
Exactly. So the fun part about this challenge was that for those 3 in that container, they had to find the links, but they had to do so while dancing.
Yeah.
So there was music being played in the container, and it only worked. Their answers only counted when they were dancing. So they were kind of like bopping. It's kind of funny.
Was it even? Some of it wasn't dancing. Some of it was just. I mean, moving.
Dancing is a broad term. It could be a lot of things. You could just be doing this, and it could be considered dancing. Anyway,
in one of the other containers, I'm not going to get all of the names correct, so apologies. But we had Alexi's container. So I think in that one we had Alexi, Michelle, and 2 others. I'm sorry.
Alexi, Michelle, and
Pasquino.
Pasquino. Was it also Rusiana or
Luciana, yes, that's it.
yeah?
And they didn't know. They still don't know how they got points, but basically they had to get
No.
10 points. They would gain a point every time one of them touched their nose, um, and they would lose a point every time one of them cursed. So we would
Yeah.
never escape this room because we just curse.
No, we would curse all the time. And see, this is how ingenious these challenges are. Like sometimes they're really stupid, like this one. It's a stupid challenge. So when you touch your nose, you get a point. When you swear, you lose a point. But the thing is, they had to figure out what they had to do to get the points. And the container was full of pictures of all of the contestants. They had a tennis racket and a ball. There was a TV screen that said 0. And at some point, one of them just started randomly kicking, hitting
Yeah,
the ball with a racket, thinking like, maybe I have to hit the pictures, or maybe I have to hit the
they
TV
hit the
screen to
TV.
get a
They hit the
point.
TV screen at one point. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
love. I also
So
love that this is a task definitely inspired by the UK show Taskmaster.
yeah,
This has
it's
definitely been a
just,
task on that. It's fantastic.
and basically they managed to get the 10 points that they needed, but they have no clue how they did it. So they
No,
got to 10 points just because one of them kept touching their nose
the door
involuntarily.
opened and like, okay, cool. They had not figured it out. And the final one, it was Pedro, Els, and Sarah.
I think it was those three. Yeah,
Yeah, because yes, we'll get into this. And they were in the dark. They had to keep riding a bike to put the lights on and then answer questions and put
yeah.
them in order. And basically, they ended up having to say the full name of Thailand, which
It's the
Yale's
full
line
name
did.
of Bangkok, I think.
Or I thought it
The
was.
capital. It's the capital of Bangkok, I think.
Well, there was a ceremonial name, and it was like 12 hours long.
Yeah, I didn't even know how long the name in Thai for Bangkok was. Like it was literally, it was like 100 words or something. It just kept
Yeah,
going.
it honestly felt like when Giles recited it later on, it felt like he was doing a very long-winded toast. You know, like.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, but anyway, those are
exactly.
the challenges. Pedro, Els, and Sarah get out first. They get into a van that is waiting for them.
Yeah,
And they make their way towards a building where a helicopter is waiting, but they
yeah,
have to get there before a courier arrives with the mole coffer. They have to get there to make sure that they intercept it so that the mole
yeah.
doesn't get it.
Okay.
So they're first, they're on their merry way. Then it's Hilda, Jan,
And
uh,
Nimrod.
and
Yeah,
Nimrod follow. And then the last team, there's nothing for them. They just have to sort of
yeah.
sit in this industrial wasteland, do nothing,
Yeah.
do
So
nothing and wait.
basically, the first two teams were the only teams that had a shot of going through to the next stage of that challenge, which was like you said, getting into a bus, a carriage, basically that would drive them to the helicopter, and then they get another task during their trip towards the helicopter. They get questions about the other team in the other car and the other carriage. Really
Yes.
simple questions. Like one of the questions was about Else, and it was what special,
What is our favorite
um,
physical trait? Or
yeah, what physical trait can she do that makes her unique? I don't
something along
remember
those
what all
lines.
three of the answers were, but the right answer was that she can spread her toes really wide, which she also demonstrated on
Freaked
TV.
me out. Freaked me
Yeah,
out, man.
kind of
I
freaky.
think it
So
freaked out the
they,
producers because it cut to her in the
yeah,
interview room, and all you can hear is the producers in the back going, "Oh,
exactly. So basically, the objective there was that if the so they had to call each other from one carriage to the other. They had to read out the question, and then it was up to the other team to decide whether they tell the truth, they give the right answer, or if they give the wrong answer. If they give the wrong answer, and that other team, picks that one, then their carriage would stop by the side of the road for 5 minutes. until the other carriage passes them, which is, of course, important because the first team that gets to the helicopter will be granted a special advantage that would help them, in the rest of the show or the rest of this episode. They don't know that. They just know that they can win
Oh
an
no, they don't
advantage,
know
but they
that
have
yet,
to get
though.
to the
They
helicopter.
don't know that yet.
Yeah, they do.
No, because
It is set
the
at
mole tells them in the helicopter.
No, it's set at the start of the challenge that the first team who gets there gets
Oh, okay. I
gets
just remember hearing it for the first time in the helicopter. Anywho, let's not worry too much about that. I want to talk about this challenge a little bit because the immediate distrust,
yeah,
absolutely amazing.
yeah,
The question for Nimrod was, what is Nimrod's real name?
yeah,
It was
yeah.
something like Nimrod, Frederick, and something else.
Roderick or something. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And they phone him. He tells them that his name is Nimrod. And they're like, nah, can't
And
be.
they don't
Must
believe
be
him.
Roderick. They lose 3 grand just for not trusting someone. They've got no
Yeah.
reason not to trust, apart from it could be a mole. But also at this stage of the game, surely you kind of need to be open to slightly trusting everyone, but
But
also
see,
at arm's length.
this is the thing, and this might have gotten lost in translation for you. This is why it's important to know that they were told at the start of the challenge that whoever gets to the helicopter first has a special advantage. That
Okay.
is why the other team
Right, got you.
starts to think, oh, but what if he's lying to get us to give the wrong answer so that they can get ahead of us in the challenge
And
and
get the advantage. Right.
get to the helicopter first. So that's why there's the distrust. And also, to be
It's
fair,
hilarious.
Nimrod is not a very common name in Belgium. I don't think it's a common name in many countries.
I've never
So
heard of the name before.
me neither. So in that sense, it's kind of it makes sense that they're like, Nimrod, really, that's your real name. But yeah, it was funny to see. So basically, let's skip to the helicopter. They get into the helicopter,
It's Pedro, Els, and Sarah
and Sarah.
make it there in time. And they
Yeah,
bank, because they got one of the 3 questions right, they bank €3,000 for the
yeah,
group pot.
yeah.
Do you have any, at this point, before we get into the twist and all the rest of it, do you have any theories of anyone who could have been trying to sabotage? I've got a few notes.
Mm, one of the things. So this is the fun thing about the mole, is that you can come up with theories and say why you
Why
think
do you think we're doing
one
this
person.
whole podcast?
Exactly. So why do we think a certain person could be the mole? So things that I found a little bit suspicious was Pedro, who was in the group that made it to the helicopter in his container. So they had to ride a bike to keep the light on so that the
Mhm.
other two could read out the full name of Bangkok. So he's riding the bike. This is someone that does sports on a regular basis. So he looks muscular, he looks athletic. He was riding that bike for 2 minutes and he was like, oh, this is so hard. And then the lights go out and then they can't continue with the challenge because you have to keep riding the bike. And I'm like, you're a sporty guy. Surely you can ride that bike for longer than 2 minutes. So that's one thing in that whole challenge that was a little suspicious in my eyes. But
Yeah. So one thing that happened, the one thing that happened in the challenge for me was that uh, Jan basically, when they were trying to find links between them, basically said, "I'm Jan. I'm 41 years old. I'm 40 years old. I drive a truck for a living. I support Antwerp, and I can't say much else." And I'm like, "What?
yeah,
That's not
yeah,
going to be
yeah,
the
yeah.
link." Like, what? I was like, "Why can't you say much more?" Um, so that was interesting. Um, and the other thing I had written down is that in her interview with the producers, Hilda says she likes to cheat.
She does. She did say that. Yeah.
Um, so who know is that something we should keep an eye out on? That's
Mm.
what I thought. Anyway, Pedro has some speed. You were talking about him being sporty. He has some speed racing to that helicopter as well.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
I also have
Which
another
is,
note.
again, this is why I find it suspicious that he can't ride a bike for longer than 2 minutes without getting tired. That was just a little.
I also have another note, but I can't remember why I wrote this down. But I wrote I would let Pedro punch me. Oh, because he told the story.
Probably because you think he's hot.
Well, yeah, but he told the story about how he punched someone. That was it, and I was like,
oh, he did. Yeah, he
yeah.
did. So, yeah. Okay.
Anyway, they get onto the helicopter. They've successfully intercepted the mole
briefcase.
coffer, and they get a message from the mole, basically saying that they can get a personal advantage if we let the mole coffer through and give it to Giles so that he can pass it back to the mole. Now, we don't know what the personal advantage is at this point.
No.
But there's a lot of discussion about whether the rest of the candidates will still trust them, whether they should do it. Is an advantage good at this point? Who?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's a quick thing for people who don't watch them all often. There is often when they get this, because this kind of proposition comes up quite a lot throughout the series, where they can get a personal advantage. Usually, when they pick a personal advantage, it's a disadvantage for the rest of the group. In a lot of the cases, it means losing the money that they've earned in this challenge, or it means even taking money out of the group to get that personal advantage. In this particular case, which I think is why they made a decision that they did not lose the money that was said when they get the proposition. You can choose for the personal advantage, but the €3,000 that you won, you will still get that for the group. Yeah. So, like you said, they don't know what the personal advantage is. They just know that it's going to be good for them. So they debate about it for a little while, and then eventually they choose to pick the personal advantage, cashing the money, but also therefore sort of like gaining a bit of distrust from the rest of the group, which is like, why did you go for personal advantage? And an important thing to know is that the reason why the mole offers this personal advantage is because he's obviously he or she is obviously a little angry that the briefcase was intercepted. So this was their backup plan from the mole. If my briefcase gets intercepted, I can still offer them a personal advantage in exchange for my briefcase.
And there is a chance that it could come up later in this episode.
Yes.
Alexei was the one that I wrote down was not happy at all about this.
Neither was Hilda, I think.
There's a few grumbles, but Alexei was the one who was maybe the most in this interview in the hotel room. I think he was the most annoyed, which was funny because he was then sharing a room with Pedro, who took the advantage. But then we go to the next day 2. And it's a double-barreled challenge. So 4 of them go to the floating markets, and
so cute.
It looked amazing. But basically, they're in a canoe. I guess it's in a canoe, lined up. They get a subject. One of them gets a subject that they have to tell the other about, and they'll then be questioned at the end. Whilst doing that, they'll then have to move food between them using a chopstick. So the first food bit was peanuts.
Peanuts, I think.
The last one was noodles, because they were making a pad thai. And the last one was noodles. And honestly, watching Els get covered in noodles...
It was hilarious. So Els was the last one. So there's a row of 4 of them in the canoe. And I thought it was funny that with obviously with the chopsticks, like it's difficult to pass things around. You can't drop it. So that's difficult enough if you're not used to eating with chopsticks.
That would be terrible.
With the noodles, they get a cup. So the first person in the canoe was Jan. So he puts the noodles in a cup with the chopsticks as well, blindfolded. They're all blindfolded. And then they had to, you've seen these challenges on the internet as well with buckets of water or something. So you have to empty the bucket and hopefully empty it in another cup that the person behind you is holding with these noodles. Now, the first 2, Jan and I think it's Sarah?
Rosiana.
Oh, Rosiana. So Jan and Rosiana, they sort of they take the cup of noodles and they're sort of feeling, oh, okay, there's your cup. And they give it, they give the noodles to the next person. Luciana also does it quite gently to Sarah. And in this particular
Yeah.
topic, Sarah is the one
It's actually
talking about the
Michelle.
topic.
It's Michelle.
Oh, sorry, Michelle. Michelle is talking about a topic that's about her. She's talking away. She gets that cup of noodles. She goes, woof! She just throws the noodles behind her. And Alice in the back is just covered in noodles, which I thought was hilarious, but also kind of suspicious.
Yes, absolutely.
In
And
my
there's
opinion.
another part of this. We'll talk about suspicions on this task after, but that was a fun sort of mini challenge going on. The sort of main challenge with the rest of them. They were having to fight a terrifying Muay Thai boxer. Obviously, they weren't fighting him. He was blindfolded. He had ribbons with sort of charade clues. You know, the game charades.
Sort of like famous TV shows. Stuff like
and
that.
They had to grab the ribbons without the Thai boxer knowing, with being able to hit them, knowing where they were. But instead of being given mouth guards, they were given harmonicas.
Yeah. So basically, if you breathe, the harmonica makes a sound. So the guy knows where you are. So he's blindfolded, but he can hear where you are. It was hilarious.
And I think we start off with Alexi, and I think it's Sarah. With Alexi.
I'm still trying to remember all these names.
But Alexi is so bad. Alexi can't stop laughing. And even when he's in the ring doing the challenge, he's gone.
Yeah, he is. It is funny.
It is funny. But he didn't get a single... I don't think he even got a single ribbon.
No, I don't think he did, no.
Pasquiano did quite okay. The other moments I have is that Hilda tried to do an impression of barking dogs, which was nothing like a dog.
Yeah. No, well, obviously she had to do an impression of... So there's a saying, barking dogs don't bite. I don't know if the saying exists in English.
I think they're similar, but I've not common.
So in Flemish, literal translation would be barking dogs don't bite. So that's the saying that she was trying to sign, or whatever, how do you call it? That's but obviously she has the harmonica in her mouth, so she can't make any noises. So she had to try and be a dog and tried. It didn't look like a dog at all. It looked like a bunny.
They thought it was a pig. They thought it was something to do with pork. And then we are told that Pedro lost one of the questions they got right because he dropped the ribbon before the answer was given, effectively passing on the question. So that, again, is another thing suspicious. But all in all, we'll get across these two. The prize pot goes up to €4,750. So quite a decent pot for first episode so far. Do we have any other people that we are suspicious of during this challenge?
Here's the thing, right? You try and not get into a tunnel vision, but it happens so easily where someone does something suspicious in the very first challenge and you start keeping an eye on them, which also means you start losing track of the other people a little bit. Now, one of the things
that's why I've got my notebook here.
Exactly. So one of the things that I saw was, again with Pedro, was that, so basically the rule was they couldn't, when they take the ribbons from the, what's he called, the
Muay Thai boxer?
Muay Thai boxer. Once they take the ribbon from the Muay Thai boxer successfully, they then had to do the charade and try to, what do you call that when you, is it
charades?
Signing? Is it charades? Yeah, but how do you call that?
Charades.
You can't say he was charading. What is the verb when you're trying to... I know the word in Dutch, but I don't know the word in English. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Yeah, so when you're trying to act out the charade card, when you've acted it out or when you want to pass because they're not guessing it, you throw the ribbon on the floor. That was the rule. So he gets this ribbon. He knows what he's supposed to do. And instead of holding on to it and doing the charade, he drops it while he's doing the charade, which means that the money earned with that specific ribbon is lost. So that's a suspicious thing, because that's €250 just down the drain because he forgot to hold on to the ribbon until he
Yeah.
finished it. So that was also something that was suspicious to me.
I want to go back to Michelle because not only was she absolutely terrible at passing the noodles, terrible, absolute terrible. She was the one who didn't want to know more details about Elsie's hobbies, which was one of the questions. And in fact, she basically stopped Els from clarifying more details about the hobby that the question was about, losing them the money that they had earned. Um, so I was a little bit. There was just two things in the same challenge there that made me go, "Huh, hmm, that's
Yeah.
interesting."
You see, my thing with Michelle is that it's at this point I find the things that she's done wrong a little bit too obvious. Like the whole noodle throwing thing, you could still say, oh, maybe that's because she was the one talking about her topic at that time. So she was concentrating on giving as many details as possible and she didn't really think about it. And also that
A great
moment where
excuse for a mole, though.
yeah, but usually the mole, judging from previous seasons, pretty much all of the previous seasons, the sabotages by the mole are usually a lot more subtle than that. Like they'll do it in such a way and they'll edit it in such a way that it's not as obvious on TV at least. So in that sense, I know she's very suspicious for a lot of people from what I've heard at work and friends say, but to me, it's too obvious. I'm like, I haven't completely written her off as the mole, but at this point, I don't really think she's that suspicious. I think she's just one of those. There's always one in the group that's really clumsy, and they don't do it on purpose. They're just that clumsy. Last year
Like
it was
Michelle last
Mikhail.
year. Mikhail, yeah.
Yeah, Mikhail. He kept doing all these weird stuff, and a lot of people thought he was suspicious, but he wasn't the mole anyway. So he was just that. He's just that clumsy. So
Yeah.
that's yeah.
Okay, so after the challenges, it's time to take the mole quiz. We see all the contestants take their quiz, or at least pretend to. In one case, one person is pretending to
Yeah.
take a quiz,
Yeah.
and we head to an elimination round. Who will be first to be eliminated? We see all the contestants pile into a tiny, tiny, tiny little elevator that would terrify the crap out of me.
Yeah, it was a tiny elevator.
And Giles comes on the intercom and explains that there are 10 seats for the 10 contestants on the roof. And they can turn off some of those seats. So they can choose a seat to turn off, and that person is automatically safe. So if the person who is eliminated, if their seat is turned off, they will not be going home, and we will have all 10 contestants until the next episode. And I always like it when we get at least two episodes of anything with the same contestants, get to know them a little bit better, etc.
Yeah, exactly. And also, how shitty is it to be the first to go home? Because you've only been there for 3 days and you're in bloody Thailand. So
I know. Do you think they just ship them straight home, or do they give them a few days in a
I
hotel?
don't know.
Anyway,
I mean, to be honest, usually the elimination is quite late at night. It's dark outside, so I'm assuming they probably just go to a hotel and then go home the next day.
Still, you don't even get a chance to enjoy whatever place you're in. Anyway,
No.
At this point, we find out that the way that they turn off the seats is like two people will get off at a floor. The lift will stop 5 times. Two people will get off, and they will answer a question to get a key card, and then they have to run or walk or hobble up the stairs to the 37th
to the
floor.
37th floor.
Where there is a switch, random switches. They don't have names on them, so they don't know whose seat they are turning off. Except the personal advantage for Pedro, Els, and Sarah is that they find out what seat number they are. So they know what seat they want to turn off. So the lift is going up and down, up and down, up and down. And I found this really interesting. The first stop was 19, and they didn't want anyone with an advantage getting off. And at this point, I think they were all assuming that they were still going up. And I was like, why don't they want someone getting off on floor 19? They'll have the furthest to go. It then went down to 11.
Yeah.
And they were
I guess they were just. Exactly. I guess they were just assuming that not only would it go up, which would be, the higher you get out, the less far you have to go up when you get the question right. So it gives you more chance to go to the roof and switch off some of the chairs.
So yeah, I would have assumed the lift would have just kept going up. I wouldn't have thought it would have gone back down. So that's why I was a little bit surprised they weren't wanting anyone with an advantage out on floor 19.
But the thing is, when you're already on the 19th floor out of going to 37 floors, and you know that it has to stop 5 times, to me, it was quite obvious that it was probably going to go down again.
Well, see, you would be good on them all. Why don't you apply?
I don't want to come on TV.
Okay. But yeah, they all got out on different floors. So I think Pedro and Sarah got off on the 11th floor eventually. They got their question right quite quickly. And Pedro fucking bolted. Pedro
he did.
all but abandoned Sarah, who at this point in the episode is in a sling because she's sprained her thumb. Like she's struggling, and he's abandoned her hilariously.
I mean, there's a lot at stake for him because he knows which seat to turn off. He's at one of the lowest floors.
Yeah.
So it's each to his own at that point. He knows which seat he has to turn off for himself because he's got the advantage. So I'm sorry, I would dump her as well. I'd be like, fuck off, I'm going up. I need to turn off my switch.
I can't remember the order on floors to get out, but Hilda and Els get out together and they get their question wrong twice, so they're wasting a lot of time. Jan and Rosiana, they get off on the same floor. Nimrod goes with Michelle, I think.
I don't remember. It doesn't matter.
Anyway, it doesn't matter, but they all get off on different floors and they all start running up to the 37th floor. And they get to the 37th floor, but they can't seem to find the switch. Why is that? Why can't they find the switch on the 37th floor, Thomas?
Oh, I don't know. Could it possibly have something to do with the mole? The mole coffer, the briefcase. So this is where we find out. So it does a little bit of a flashback to before the contestants go on holiday, and the mole, who you still can't see, and the voice is, changed, is sitting in front of Jill, the presenter of the show.
Oh, is that how you pronounce it? I've just been saying Giles. This is a whole Tomas situation all over again.
Exactly. It doesn't matter. And basically, Jill says to the mole, this is a briefcase that you're going to take with you. You can put anything in it that you want that will help you sabotage the tasks. And again, the mole knows in advantage what the tasks are going to be. You can take anything with it. The only rule is it has to fit inside the briefcase. So they had the ingenious idea to copy one of the signs one of the signs with the floor number that are hanging in the hotel. Now, I don't know how they did this, but they copied the sign for floor number 37. It was incredible. It looked exactly the same as the real one. They copied it, put it in that briefcase, and whilst everyone else was filling in the test, the mole secretly went to the 36th floor, stuck the sign of floor 37 over the 36 sign, which obviously then meant that the people running up the stairs suddenly come up to a floor where they see, oh, floor 37, we made it. They start looking for the switchboard with all the switches to turn off the chairs. It's not there. They're panicking. I think at some point, was it either Sarah or Michelle was crawling into like a hatch in the wall.
They were
trying to find where it was.
Housekeeping cupboards. They were everywhere.
It was hilarious. Now, eventually they do catch on and they're like, oh, wait a minute, is this really the 37th floor? They're still stairs. So they go up and then they see, oh no, this is the 37th floor. So they lose a lot of precious time, which means by the end of the challenge, and this is something that they say at the start of the challenge when they get into the elevator, they only get 10 minutes to go up to the 37th floor, 10 minutes from the start when the elevator starts moving. So by the time the 10 minutes end, only 5 of the 10 contestants have made it up to the 37th floor in time to turn off a switch. Now, of course, Pedro is one of them, and he obviously knows which seat his is his. So he was able to turn his off. I think it was number 2 or number 5 or something.
Now, here's the interesting thing. Pedro's was already turned off. Someone else
Yeah,
turned Pedro's off.
I did notice that. But, you know, lucky for him. But even if they hadn't, he could have still turned his off because he was on time. The other 4, I think he was the only one with an advantage that made it to the top 4 because else didn't make
screwed
it.
up with the questions, and then Sarah
And
was
Michelle, was it Sarah or Michelle?
Sarah.
Yeah, and then yes, she was nowhere to be seen. So Pedro is the only one that made it to the roof with an advantage. So the other 4 turned off a switch randomly, not knowing if it's their seat or not. So they, you know, either got lucky or not.
On this, I do just want to do a quick shout out to Jan on those stairs because it is so
hilarious.
I sent you a meme today, which is me after one flight of stairs, and it's just this goat struggling to breathe. And honestly, it speaks to me. I hate going. I'm terrible. One flight of stairs and I'm done.
Yeah, same.
But yeah, absolutely. The way that they edited it as well. Everyone's running. Pedro is steaming ahead, and Jan's like,
and really like extreme, like panting extremely, like he was ready to fall dead right then and there.
Yeah, and Pedro's older than him as well.
He is.
Pedro's a year older than Jan.
Yeah, but obviously a lot more sporty, and you know.
Yeah. Because the note I just have is Jan is me. Basically.
Yeah.
So as you said, 5 are safe. That's an extra €200 each. So we end the episode with €5,750, and we go up to the elimination area, and we see the 5 seats that are turned off, and we end up with Alexei, Pasquino, Els, Russiana, and Nimrod. Yeah, that's the 5 who are facing elimination. So if either of them scored lowest, they go home. They're gone. They're gone. If not, if it's one of the 5 that are safe, they're fine. All 5 are safe, so we get to see them another time.
Yeah. I was really nervous because you just don't know. It was like they could have edited that it was the last one.
Yeah.
To go home, but yeah.
I love the way they reveal this, and that it's just a type of the name in the screen and it goes red. Or green. It's so subtle. It's not over the top, but it does bring in, like, especially when you've got Gilles typing quite slowly in some cases. Like, it's like you can't find the enter button. It's like, where's the button? It just builds up the tension. It's really good. But we're all safe, and we're going into the next episode. We get a little sneak of another conversation with the mole and Gilles of what would you like to bring for Aflevering do? Twee? Sorry. I am learning. Twee. And the mole mentions something about, I'm thinking about something for the train. So there's going to be
and then there's a flash forward of the contestants getting, or it's a flash forward of Gilles getting on a train. So there's obviously going to be a challenge on a train, which is
and
really
it looks
exciting.
like they were having to like carry some. And we had a preview, and it looked like they were having to carry different glasses and anything like that. But I thought this was a very fun first episode. I really enjoyed it.
It was a very good, I really like I sometimes wonder how they keep coming up with these challenges, because the challenges are always so
they're watching other TV shows as well and figuring that out.
Yeah, but even then it's still wild to me that they still find all these challenges, and they're always so well put together.
Mm-hmm.
And how they, how they put the advantages in there, and it's just, there's some really smart people working on this. I'm always really impressed with this. Like, it's just, I've never had a season where I'm like, oh, well, these challenges were a bit dull.
Yeah.
You know, it's always funny or spectacular or whatever.
Yeah, and it's like it's the right level of funny and serious sometimes, like but it's so good. I am interested to hear what people are saying in Flanders, what you've heard from friends, colleagues, etc.
So basically, there's also Café de Mol, which you get a little preview from during the episode. Um, so for those who don't know, Café de Mol is sort of like a talk show-ish show after the mole, right after the episode, where they go live to a studio where there's a presenter, another presenter. Usually it's two celebrities on a sofa with him, and then there's an audience, and then they just talk about the episode. They talk about theories they have, who they think is suspicious, blah blah blah.
So they're doing lists.
And what they're
So they're
doing
doing
this
lists.
basically, they're basically doing this. Um, so what they do at the end of the show, so you can vote online for who you as a viewer think is the most suspicious of the 10.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. And then at the end of Café de Mol, they announce for this episode who does Flanders think, or everyone online who's watching think, is the most suspicious one. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's Else who topped the poll.
Oh,
Yeah. I think Pedro was second. And I think it's either, is it Hilda? I think that was third.
Hilda. Yeah, Hilda's the older child psychologist.
Yeah, with curly hair. Yeah, I think it was those three. Yeah.
Okay. Any water cooler chat at work?
Any what?
Any work chat at work? We call it
So
water cooler chat.
well, there's only three of us, and one of my colleagues doesn't watch because she has no life, basically. Um, if you don't
Hot
watch them all, what
kettle
is your
and
life
black.
really? Exactly. My other colleague is also obsessed with them all. So basically, if you're not Flemish, you have no clue how big this show is in Flanders. Like, honest to God, it is by far the most popular TV show of the last 13 years. Like, people literally stay home to watch this. Colleagues, friends, family, everybody talks about it. And that's the smart thing of having one episode each week, is that they allow people time to come up with these crazy theories about who is the mole. We should spend an episode on the theories that you find online about why people think a certain person is the mole. They go so far in this; it's wild sometimes. Anyway, my colleague, he's got his eye on Michelle, which is the one
Ah,
that we said, threw the noodles back and stuff like that. For me, it's too obvious. Apparently, his girlfriend also thinks it's too obvious. She doesn't think it's Michelle, but he thinks it's Michelle. And I think he has Hilda second, so the little bit older lady. And I think he's got Pedro third.
okay.
So that's his view. My mom also watches it, but she doesn't understand shit. She doesn't understand what's happening. So she watches it, and like half the time when she's watching it, she's sending me a message. Well, I don't understand what's happened there. Like, and I'm like, that's the point. You're not supposed to understand. You're supposed to guess. So she
Oh,
has no clue what she's doing with it. Yeah, but like, so the people in Flanders obviously think Else is the most suspicious one. My colleague is thinking Michelle. I just have my eyes on Pedro at this moment. I think
why do you
Else
have your eyes on
and,
Pedro though?
oh, well, various reasons. But the main reason being that I do think that he did some. See, my thing with Pedro, and the reason why I've got my eyes on him right now, is that his things that I think where he sabotaged or where he did weird things, they're all very subtle,
Mm-hmm.
but they have cost money. Michelle has cost money, but it was so in your face, and it's usually a little more subtle than that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now I still have Michelle. I agree with your
Mm.
colleague. Michelle is my number one, and I've got my eye on Hilda as well.
Yeah. So
At the
you're agreeing
moment,
with him completely then. Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. I've got my eyes on
And
him.
what is it about Hilda? Because you
Um,
haven't really mentioned anything about her, I
so
think.
Hilda was um, She
Or
said
is it
she
just the
likes
part that she says she likes cheating? Yeah.
she said she likes to cheat. The immediate distrust in the bus questions, she was instantly like, "Don't tell them the truth." Like straight away, she was like, don't tell them anything." Which made me think that she wanted to get into the helicopter so that she can persuade her team to take the advantage and let them all cover through. She also
Okay.
her charade was also terrible. Um, but with Michelle, you're saying, "Oh, it's too obvious. It's too obvious." But here's the thing: other contestants were blindfolded, so
Yeah, but they're not. It's not just. You have to understand that the way that the show is made, it's not just the contestants that have to look for the mole. That's why you, as a viewer, don't know who the mole is. So if they want to keep the suspicion, the suspense all the way up to the end, they will not put any sabotages on screen that obvious. However, and this is where you can keep going with these theories and you can keep
yeah.
thinking about it. You can keep, it's like a roller dice, so you keep rolling it. It could also be a tactic. Because a lot of the times, a lot of people agree if it's too obvious, it's not going to be that person. It's going to be someone else, going to be more subtle. But what if you, as a mole, think that way? What if you think I'm going to be so obvious that everyone immediately writes me off because they'll just say that I'm too obvious, so it's probably just clumsiness, and you stay under the radar because of it.
I
It
mean,
could be,
it's
it could
valid.
be a tactic.
I understand why you've got Pedro, but uh, I think if he is the mole, he's a very good actor in that case because he did genuinely look. But he could be. He could be. This is it. We don't know enough.
You're
Um,
supposed to be. You're supposed to be a good actor. You're supposed to, you know, stay under the radar as long as possible.
yes,
So
but I guess what we can do is we can ask you at home, who do you think the mole is? Who do you have suspicions for, and why? Do you agree with me and Thomas's colleague, or do you agree with Thomas? Is it more likely to be Pedro? And are you just looking at Pedro for other reasons, like Thomas? Like,
yeah,
it's a
I
valid
mean,
reason.
yeah, I was gonna say, don't tell me you're not looking at Pedro in some
I
ways.
mean, I said that let him punch me.
Yeah,
So, I mean, what does
yeah.
that tell you? No,
You
I think that,
see, this is why I love this show so much. Is that you can just never know. It's such a mind fuck. It's so, and you know what it is? These contestants, even if they're not the mole, they will sometimes do things. They will sometimes deliberately sabotage tasks to put the suspicion towards them, so that the other contestants will think, oh, well, he did something suspicious there, so I'm going to
and
fill in the quiz on him. So that's
yeah,
also a tactic.
so they get eliminated. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So it's
Oh,
such a mind fuck.
there's so much going on in this game, and we've only just started. Next week it's Aflevering 2. I'm so excited. Um, Join us there. If you want to, you can subscribe to this channel. This isn't our normal type of content, but you can subscribe to our channel, like this video, and ring the notification bell. And you can also go to niallpointsreality.com where you can get links to the audio version of the podcast, and you can also view some of our Eurovision content if you like Eurovision. We very much like Red Sebastian here, so if you
Yeah.
like strobe lights,
Another
come join
Belgian
us.
legend.
Um, and that's it. We will see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.